Welcome, beautiful friends. I feel a little remiss. I'm kind of like, Tonto without, what was the guy? The Lone Ranger. My Lone Ranger is in the house. We're parked in the driveway of our daughter's house. She's babysitting tonight. So I'm without my partner, my Lone Ranger. So I'll do my best without her. But I'm sure she's holding space and presence in her own way, being instructed by those two teachers that she has in her present awareness. So I've been in my own period of in between, and I can about see the light at the end of my in between tunnel. It's been probably the most intense in between that I've experienced so far. It went deeper into subtle energies that I hadn't seen yet, hadn't abided in, and hadn't truly come to know in the way that I could know myself and set myself free. But I had a kind of revelatory breakthrough day before yesterday, and I would say my consciousness pierced through beyond what I had experienced. And of course, those are glorious moments of revelation when all of a sudden, boom, you see more than you've ever seen before. You feel what you've never felt before, and you have this incredible, incredible clarity. And then inevitably comes the disorientation that comes with that. Because now that to use the analogy we used with John a couple of weeks ago, now that you've climbed the ladder enough rungs and you have a new view, everything that you thought you understood before from a lower vantage point, it's not so relevant anymore. So whenever we do break through into a new layer of consciousness, inevitably, it's kind of like a heartbeat. There's this big high, oh my gosh, and then inevitably the disorientation comes. Now, Yeshua talks about these periods of disorientation. He's really specific about it in the Course in Miracles, that these are actually very good and they're helpful. They're signs of progress, so long as you don't misinterpret them and think you're losing something. So I've been going through my own rather significant in-between, but because, like with our sand video, I've just learned to be at peace with process, not at peace because things are the way I want them to be, either within me or outside of me. And that's a really big distinction for all of us to make. That inner peace isn't the absence of inner disturbance. Inner disturbance isn't proof that peace has been lost. Because spacious presence, in its all infinitely powerful, loving presence, peace is still there in the midst of whatever might be going on within. It's just we become attached to the inner disturbance, the things that change, and we fall from that higher realm of consciousness, which is the spacious presence. So for those of you who have been operating by the consciousness that says, if I have a negative thought, if I have a feeling I don't like, if I'm triggered by something, then of course that means I'm wrong and I'm bad and I'm not getting it and I got to work a whole fucking lot harder and blah, 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 blah. That's the spiritual ego in the height of its manipulation. Because when you truly do discover presence always is, and it's always at peace, and it's what you truly are, and that it never goes anywhere, the manipulation that the mind runs that makes you wrong or guilty because a negative feeling or a negative thought or pain or anything is present, that's going to lose its power and authority. You have to buy into that game for it to continue. You have to take the bait and become that mind, which is now bad because of this judgment or whatever. And then you got a mess on your hands. All the while, presence is lovingly there, holding you in perfect peace while you play your games of ego or spiritual ego or becoming or whatever the case may be. So the addiction that we're all working to break is our exclusive focus on the things that change. And if we're all really honest, our whole life, our light has been focused on everything that changes. So much so, we lost total awareness of presence. We lost total awareness of our eternal nature, that which has been, is now, and will ever be. We've lost total awareness of that. And then we set out to fix all these temporary things, which, we can change. That's for damn sure. We can improve. But in case you haven't noticed, that game never seems to end, does it? That game of needing to fix never seems to end. So tonight we're going to do a little bit of a recap, because one of the things I like to do as I'm coming out of my in-between is I like to take an inventory and a celebration of what has gotten me to this stage. So in our group together, we're going to do a bit of a review together and celebrate what has come so far, so that we might be able to take an inventory, celebrate it, and make it our own. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of context about why we've been doing what we've been doing, what the purpose was, and where we're headed next. Because the clue came in Mother Mary's channeling through Cindy when she invited us to love our creations. So we're all about to make a transition. But before we do that, let's celebrate where we've come from. So we all came together, drawn by the Spirit, with an intention for something greater. And if all of us had found that something greater, we wouldn't have a need to come together, myself included. So I celebrate that we're all equal in our journeys, unique and individuated as they are, coming to the realization of our ever-present eternal nature. So we've honored our body as the master of presence that it is. We've invited the war with our body to cease. That it's not pretty enough, that it's too this, it's too that, it's not enough of this, it's not enough of that, it doesn't look the way I want, doesn't feel the way I want, doesn't act the way I want. We've invited all of that to go out the window so that we could recognize that the body is a master of presence. It's never anywhere but right here, right now. As long as you've been in that thing, you've never lost it. Your mind's been lost in, an innumerable amount of places, but your body never has. So we've invited a new relationship to the body as the body being an effortless anchor to right here, right now. It's not something that our mind has to exert one iota of thought about. It's not anything our mind has to now master a new technique to make sure the body's present. The doer and the maker, which is our thinking mind, needs to do nothing in order for the body to effortlessly and perfectly be present right here, right now. So I invited you into a relationship with your body as the spiritual master of presence that it is. Is it a temporary creation? Of course it is. Is it our identity? No, it's not. But while we're operating with them, it is emulating for us perfect representation of eternity, that it's always right here, right now. So we began by exploring the nature of our light, which is just our conscious awareness. That light that knows, that light that sees. And we just very simply took a journey of exploring our body using the power of our light. For instance, placing our awareness, focusing our light on our feet. Shazam! Without any effort, Every one of us is already a master of this. Boom, your feet light up in your awareness. And you know they're your feet. You're not confused about them. You don't think, well, maybe that's a watermelon. You just know. Doesn't require any thinking at all. We focus that light on the body in lots of ways, simply to illuminate what light is, and that it is yours, and you alone sovereignly determine where you focus it. That light of awareness that can see is never what it sees. So you're perfectly capable of seeing your feet, even with your eyes closed. I mean, I'm not saying a picture, but you know they're there. But that light that knows is not the feet itself. So the light that illuminates negative thoughts in our consciousness is never the negative thoughts. The light that illuminates our feelings is never the feelings. What we've duped ourselves into is believing that that light is equal to what it looks upon, instead of recognizing that our light is totally free of what it looks upon, what it experiences. So let's just do a little experiment right now. So I'd like each of you to close your eyes, and I want you to use your really, really powerful thinking mind and command your light to go out. Can you, with your thoughts, extinguish that inner light? Absolutely impossible. And quite funny. Some of you hit it right away. It was just this spontaneous laughter, like that's the craziest thing in creation. Well, my friends, you just proved to yourself death is impossible. Your eternal light cannot be extinguished. And you just proved it to yourself. So we've been inviting each of us to recognize this light, to recognize it's always there. It simply looks upon wherever we focus it, and it reports what is. All the opinions and judgments and evaluations come from our thinking mind, but the light simply shines and reports what is. It's totally neutral. It's totally impartial. What if that light is what we are? The light doesn't judge. The light can look just as innocently on a landfill as a field of beautiful poppies. If you focus your eyes on a landfill, the light simply boop, reports a landfill. If you focus your light on a field of poppies, boop, light simply reports a field of poppies. The suffering comes when we add our mind's beliefs and judgments and thoughts and commentary to that light. And then we begin to play a game of right and wrong, good and bad. The poppies are beautiful, they're of God. The landfill's nasty, it's of man, blah, 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 blah. And even when we play that game, your eternal light still shines upon it and illuminates that game. So we then took that light as we began to play with the discovery and the intelligence and the neutrality and the non-judgment and the power of that light. We began to focus it in new ways. Because heretofore, most of us had probably only focused that light through our 5 physical senses that reported temporary things exclusively. But we use the power of that light to now focus on what I've called spacious presence. You guys can call it whatever you want. I just use an innocuous name because if I had said the peace of God, everybody would have been looking for something else. You would have been looking for an idea or a concept of what you thought it would be. So I just used something generic enough that you would just allow yourself the privilege of actually discovering it and experiencing it for yourself. So we turned our light in a new way. We asked our light to focus on the spacious presence that suffuses our very bodies. And we began to have a different experience. That light began to report to us what is about spacious presence itself. Birthless, deathless, needless, peace. It's always been there, but we were focusing our light only on temporary things. So we began to explore, play with great curiosity and wonder, can I focus my light on the eternal? And will it do what it has done for me in the physical? If I filter that light through the 5 senses, I can only know of things that come and go. But if I take that light and focus it on something that never comes and never goes, can I learn? Can that light report to me what is about that eternal nature? And we did lots of play, lots of exercises, lots of curious exploration. As we expanded our light, we awoke that our light is not limited to time and space. Our light doesn't have to be restricted to only filter through the 5 senses of our physical bodies. And many of you began to have your own authentic experiences of ahas, revelations. Not that this is new, but that you began to realize what had been hidden silently there the whole time. You just didn't know where to look. Our body mind, the seeker that is the ego, will continue to seek in the temporary things rather than finding the eternal thing, which is already whole, already complete. Spacious presence wasn't like, little tiny spacious presence 2,000 years ago, and it's becoming really magnificent and grand, and maybe in 2,000 more years it'll be magnificenter. It already is whole. It already is complete. It already is invulnerable. It already has no needs. It already abides in a perfect peace. And we also discovered, as we expanded our light and focused it on spacious presence in a new way, using the very same light, we just awoke it and began to play with focus it in a new way. We focused it on spacious presence and began to discover, what if this is my true nature? What if my eternal spirit, my light, and the eternal properties of my being, birthless, deathless, infinitely intelligent, wise, peaceful. What if that is literally present and here and now and is actually suffusing the very body I'm walking around in? I have just mastered totally ignoring it. What a brilliant use of light. So Yeshua likes to call it the tiny mad idea. There we are as light, knowing we're eternal, knowing we're unlimited, knowing we're at perfect peace, knowing we're infinitely intelligent. We have no needs whatsoever. We're pure consciousness, if you want to call it that. And we had this idea, how could we forget? How could we forget? Well, my friends, we are all walking around in the crown jewel of forgetfulness. We could create a form called a body with 5 senses, and we could narrow our light to look only through that vehicle of the 5 physical senses. And then as we did that, we began to create within that 5 physical senses, within that structure of the body, we began to create persona and thought and identity through beliefs and judgments. Pretty brilliant, don't you think? So, this thing is called beyond belief into presence. Has anybody realized for yourself yet that no belief is true? What if beliefs are the costumes that we drape on our bodies in order to have unique experiences that distinguish us from other people with other beliefs? So what if the belief game is just part of the dream of separation? And this belief game has been raging as long as this planet's been spinning, or at least as long as we've been embodying on it. The beliefs of Christianity versus the beliefs of Islam, the beliefs of the Course in Miracles community versus the Way of Mastery community. As long as you continue to root your identity in your physicality, in your body, with your unique set of beliefs, you cannot help but play the game of separation. Because the game of beliefs requires you to evaluate yours in relation to everyone else's, and boy, you better have the right ones. And the spiritual ego just loves this, loves this, loves this. You start to get these spiritual ideas and these spiritual concepts, and then you look through the body's eyes at all those stupid ones who don't have these new ideas, these new age beliefs, and you think you're better than them. Or you get high and mighty and pious, and you think, have compassion, they just don't know. What a fabulous doubling down on the game of separation through beliefs and putting a spiritual ribbon on it. Wow. 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 And we've told ourselves, and we've even taught ourselves in this world, that it's all about beliefs, that you better have the friggin' right ones, that the beliefs will free you. Okay, I'm just going to ask for a raise of hands. Can anyone please share with me the supreme belief which has freed you? Anybody? Anybody? So what if we allowed ourselves to recognize finally, that the pursuit of truth is not within the realm of belief and concept. It is not your beliefs or lack thereof that will either set you free or imprison you. It will be the restoration of an eternal identity as light in an eternal spacious presence that will free you from the game of belief, from the game of needing to have the right ones and get rid of the wrong ones and say the prayers in just the right way and get the cadence just right and don't mess up a stinking Course in Miracles lesson. Now, while we play this belief game, and even this highly evolved, super subtle, separating I'm better than you mechanism of the spiritual game of beliefs, has the nature of your light changed at all? It's yours, it's sovereign, you focus it where you want, and it reports what is. Has the nature of spacious presence changed at all? Birthless, deathless, needless, changeless. Is the only problem that we have identified only with half of the equation. Our physical body, its thinking mind, its persona, its ego, its spiritual ego, its beliefs. What if awakening is only the earth of our body mind finally being reunited with the heaven of our light and presence, and they again become one? Could it be this utterly simple? And could it be more utterly complex, bamboozling, and bewildering? All of the above. Well, let's explore just a wee bit why it is so hard. Because our habitual pattern of identity with the body, with the temporary things that come and go, we've just mastered it. We've exclusively focused on it for so long. The temporary thoughts that come through our mind, we think they're ours. For those of you who have used the meditation of the heart of Christ, and I hope you've used it in your own words, Yeshua's really clear, and you've probably heard your own voice saying it, I am not the thinker of these thoughts. That also means you're not the thinker of the spiritual ones either. Many of us don't want to be the thinker of the negative ones, but we really like being the thinker of the spiritual ones. That's just a new prison. That's a new way to trap yourself and identify with a new string of thought that you now say is you, and you will defend that identity even more viciously than you did the one with the negative thoughts. Isn't that crazy? There's got to be a better way, friends. There has to be a better way. So why do we start with the improvement of the body mind? Why do we start with, I need to change this thought that I'm unworthy to I'm a child of God? Or I need to change this judgment. I need to forgive myself of that, because we're so rooted in our temporary, our physical body mind, that that's where we have to start. The teacher meets the student where they're at. That's where we think we are. None of us have a clue about what light is and what its nature really is. None of us, except in moments of, total exhaustion, have probably touched spacious presence in any way that we actually cognized it or realized what was happening. So we're met in our body mind exactly where we think we are, and we're given tools to begin the process of what we initially think is improving that self. That's the one that has to wake up. So that's where the lessons of A Course in Miracles meet us initially. Everybody looks like they're frozen. Is everybody still there? Okay, so that's where the lessons of A Course in Miracles meet us initially, because we think we're the thinker of the thoughts. And if we're the thinker of the thoughts, we're guilty for the thoughts, and we need to change our thinking. So we're met there at the level of the thinking mind. But the deeper into true awakening that we go, the more you begin to realize, wait a minute, if the thought, I'm a worthless piece of shit, isn't true, what's different about that than the thought, I'm a child of God? We can assign value. We can judge the unworthiness and create a feeling of bad. We can judge the I'm a child of God and create a feeling of good. But they're both simply a string of words. So at some point, you'll begin to recognize the thought game isn't where it's at. And when that begins to truly happen, that's what Yeshua kind of calls the turn. We begin to turn in such a way that we begin to look beyond the thinking mind and the temporary world and everything that's within it. And that's when the Course in Miracles or the Way of Mastery or, Conversations with God or something starts showing up in our lives. And we begin the self-improvement game, because we are this. There's not a question in our mind that we're not. So that's where we're met, and we begin our journey. But what we've been doing together is awakening light itself, and even awakening our body-mind structure to the fact that light and the body are not the same thing. And we began to use our light to focus on the eternal, and thereby begin to report to us that which is beyond belief. And all along, I've been inviting you, simply experience your experience. Let your experience be the teacher. Move to gnosis, direct knowing, using the simple power of light to report what is, and moving towards spacious presence and letting it reveal to you the eternal nature of your very own being. This is very exciting stuff, friends. Yeah, Lisa's giving a thumbs up. Because in this process, simply using the power of light to report what is, we're bypassing the thinking mind as the maker and doer. Because the thinking mind isn't the creator of light, it's the interpreter of what light sees. The thinking mind isn't the creator of presence, it rests in a grander presence. So this whole, everything we've been doing up to this stage is to awaken us to the ever-present nature of light, which is our eternal identity, and that light, unique, sovereign, and individual, is within an infinite field of presence, which we could call the Christ mind, the mind of God, the quantum field, whatever works for you. And that those two things, none of us create. There's not a single one of us. Maybe in some of my real spiritual arrogance, I would have tried to claim that I was creating light and creating presence, but it's not true. No thought creates it. All thoughts arise within it. So imagine the first body that appeared, light and spacious presence preceded it. The body appeared within that field. The very first thought appeared within the field of light and spacious presence. The Alpha and the Omega, After all the temporary stuff does its thing, the Alpha and the Omega, light, spacious presence, always are and will always be. And none of us need to lift a finger to get light or presence. No matter how many puppies you ran over as a kid or whatever you did that you thought was so bad, your light and your presence have not been diminished in any way whatsoever. And no matter how many homeless children you have fed, your light and you can't earn light and presence. It just is. It's not a reward for being good or doing things right. It is a gift of grace that we all have, and we all have equally. That's really cool. Let's just all take a little breath with that and feel into your own presence in your own way. Not does what I've said make sense to our minds, but can you allow your light within the field of that spacious presence and know it? Give yourself the gift of direct gnosis. The ease and the peace of light and presence. Wow. A light that we revealed to ourselves earlier, our thinking mind cannot extinguish. The temporary has no power over the eternal. But in case you guys haven't noticed, our identity is still stuck to our body mind like super glue. Has anybody noticed that? Yeah, of course. We still think we're the thoughts that run through our mind. We still think the feeling states in the body are us and tell us and determine whether we're right or wrong, good or bad, spiritual or not. Wow. So awakening to light and its nature and to presence and its nature are only the first stages of awakening. Sometimes it's called waking up and out because we recognize this light is greater than, it's higher than our temporary body mind. And it's in this infinite field of presence. Because if any of you have played with presence, you doesn't take you long to recognize it doesn't have an edge. There's no top, there's no bottom, there's no end, there's no beginning. It's infinite. But still, our identity is so rooted in our physicality and the things that come and go. And why is that? Because it had to be. Because if we hadn't have been so good at focusing on the temporary, we never could have had authentic experiences of being a body, separate from other bodies, believing that loss is possible, creating and believing that sex too, that was what's on my mind, but that sickness is real and that death is inevitable. So just appreciate for a moment the power in this very subtle thing called light and spacious presence that can create worlds, bodies, personalities, psyches, histories, beliefs, wants, judgments, trees, planets, you name it. There's an infinite amount of power here. It's not like we've made these body-mind identities with popsicle sticks and Elmer's glue. We've used the infinite power of light and the infinite freedom of presence, consciousness, in order to do so. So, why have we been doing this? To establish our true identity. And if any of us were fully identified with that, we wouldn't be having this conversation together. So we can all admit, all of us, me included, are still on our journey of moving our identity from the temporary to the eternal. Words don't make it so. This is much subtler than that. We've all thought the right thoughts. I'm a child of God. I am free. I remain as I was created to be. Yeah, well, those are really lovely thoughts, but the thoughts in and of themselves aren't the lived truth of it. So we're going to make the turn. This is what Mother Mary was alluding to, and turn back towards our creation. Towards our body-mind, towards the physicality, towards our judgments, towards our past, towards our guilt, towards our fear, towards all those things that anchor us to this identity. Because remember what Mother Mary said, love your creations. And that didn't mean we had to like them. It didn't mean we had to approve of them. Because remember, we discovered that to love is to free. So how do we, as light and as presence, free ourselves from our misidentity with our body-mind structure? We've all tried denial in some way or the other. That hasn't done it. We've all tried to dismiss the body and its experience in this temporary world. Yep, that's not done it either. We've all tried to create a new self-perception of ourselves as holy or as awake or as light or whatever, and then we've had to defend that. That hasn't worked either. So to be trapped in our physicality without knowing our eternal nature and trying to fix ourselves is really, really tough. That's real kind of suffering. So why we've spent all this time and all this energy and all this play together discovering our totally eternal nature, our perfect safety, our perfect peace, our invulnerability, is so that we could bring that curiosity, that truth, and that power, which is already love, to our physical identities and our associated psyches and ego and everything with it, so that we can then make the turn and come to love or heal our misidentity, so that we can truly love it into freedom. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So all of us who have been wanting a spiritual path to escape this world, to escape this shitty body that we're in, to escape these shitty thoughts in my mind, to escape my past, I'm here to say, sorry. We can, however, heal, truly forgive and free those things and free our identity from them, but not because we deny them, not because we defend them, not because we avoid them. Hope that makes sense. But now we have a context in which to look back upon our creations, whether it's our thoughts, our feelings, our memories, our past, our body, our temporary experience. We now have an eternal capacity of light and presence from which we can truly look on our creations from a place of safety and great wisdom. We can use the power of light to look upon our creation and let the power of light reveal what is. Without judgment, without fear, without condemnation, without needing to defend or protect, we can use that power of light to reveal what's truly going on here. Now, this makes all the difference in the world, because how many of us have tried to find the source of what has been disturbing us from within the thinking mind itself? Like the thinking mind has a map to tell you the unconscious stuff. It doesn't. And it's frustrating as piss if anybody has tried it. But light has been there since the very, very beginning of your journey. So it knows, it has the map, so to speak. It already has the gnosis, the power to illuminate what you have yet not seen. Does that make sense? So I just want to give a little example. How many of you have tried to discover something about yourself by going like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why the fuck can't I get this right? I know better, blah, 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 blah. Looking upon the self from your temporary self, from your body, mind, personality structure, and it's rooted in deep self-judgment. It's rooted in deep guilt. It's rooted in shame. It's rooted in a need to improve. It's rooted in good, bad, right, wrong, and the whole crazy belief game. Got everybody? That's making sense to everybody? So why we've spent all this time together so far is creating a pathway to your own light, your own gnosis, your own infinite wisdom, so that you now have power to truly look back upon your creations from a place of innocence, wonder, and gnosis, so that you can bring the love that will truly heal these things. And it's your own love, it's your own light, it's your own presence. And I don't mean it's yours like it's Joan's, it's hers as in she as Christ. It's her eternal nature, it's the power of God itself. Because from that point of view, we can inquire, wow, how have I as light and freedom and presence created my personality, created my suffering, created my fears? Can anybody feel the difference there? Let yourself just really feel into this. The fear of trying to free yourself from within the body mind itself with its judgments, its guilts, its shames, its trying to hide and fear of being seen and all that. And then the power and the wisdom of doing your inquiry using the power of light within a field of presence to discover how you as Christ have created your unique version of separation. I kind of look at it this way. It's the difference of swimming through the sewer of your body mind trying to find the drain plug, or looking upon it from the mountain of light in perfect safety, where you can marvel at, love, celebrate, and free your temporary creation. As light, what would you be frightened to look upon? As the body mind, there's plenty you're frightened to see, right? As the body mind that believes it can experience loss and punishment and sickness and death because of what you believe, because of what's within you, persecution even, that's a frightening thing, isn't it? Feel the power of spacious presence, birthless, deathless, needless, invulnerable, looking back upon its dream of separation. Let yourself feel the difference. Looking from the mountaintop with the power of light's gnosis that already knows, or looking from within the body mind itself that has hidden all of that, can't access this stuff. Can you feel the difference? So we're going to make the turn, establish our identity in presence, looking with that safety, that gnosis, that great wonder back upon the creation of our body minds to simply discover how we have created our unique expression of separation. Now, my friends, this has extraordinary power behind it, because not only are you going to, with every inquiry, every step into truth, looking back upon your temporary creation, not only will you be claiming your eternal truth as light and presence, you will be discovering your creative power and your freedom with every single inquiry you make. You will be reawakening your creative freedom and power by loving your temporary creation of the body mind and its personality and its ego back into a state of wholeness. Let yourself just feel that for a moment. As Christ, am I willing to discover from the safety of my eternal light in presence how I have created my egoic identity and my unique personality, thoughts, beliefs, likes, dislikes, hates, judgments, and suffering. From a place of power and safety and direct gnosis, rather than a fearful body mind that is frightened to look under the hood. I wondered when the turn would come, and Mother Mary delivered it through Cindy, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Love your creations. Your body is your creation. And as light, your body is your creation. As light, your personality is your creation. As light, your ego is your creation. As light, your spiritual ego is your creation. So how can we wake up and truly identify ourselves as light unless we begin to discover how we've used light to lose awareness of who we are? That doesn't mean this is going to be fun. Doesn't mean it's going to be painless. It doesn't mean we're always going to like it. But we will know ourselves, and the simplest admonition at the core of every spiritual pathway is know thyself. And the more you use the power of light and presence to turn back to your creations and discover them with great curiosity and wonder from the power of your eternal spacious presence, using the gnosis of light, the greater you will know thyself, the greater you will see the workings, the subtle workings of your egoic body-mind structure. But in that process, you will begin to marvel and reawaken the creative capacity that you've been using all along to dupe yourself. So this is not about running away from our egoic creations. Contained within our egoic creation and our spiritual ego is the very power of creation itself. And if you want to become a conscious creator as light, it is very, very helpful to begin to discover how you've been using it to create your own unconsciousness. your own fear. Because like it or not, we cannot escape light. There is no death, and we cannot escape choice, nor can we ever escape experiencing the effects of our choices. And thank God for that! But we've all been fearful because we were doing it from within this little tiny structure called the body. We didn't have access to the gnosis and the power and the wisdom of this eternal light that knows every nuance of our temporal experience. So I'm just a wonder question. I wonder if you as light are ready to discover your creative nature by loving and exploring your temporary creation of this body mind and its unique structure. If there are tears that need to be shed because you don't get to run away from this, then shed them. If there are spiritual ideas of liberation beyond the body that need to be crushed, let them be crushed. The greatest gift you can give yourself as light, as an eternal creator in the image of God, is to use your body, its ego, its personality, as your self-discovery of your creative power. If you want to be a conscious creator, because it's joyful to hang out in presence and be peace, no doubt. But we move from resting there to becoming conscious, curious creators by using our very body minds, their personality, their enneagram, their egoic structure, the whole bit, to know ourself. Using our capital S self-light and its gnosis and wisdom and power to know our temporary creation. There's not a greater gift we can give ourselves than to awaken to this ever increasingly and stop running away from our temporary creations, but use them to discover our eternal power, our eternal freedom. So, welcome, friends, to The Turn, where we turn back from running away from our creations and our guilts and our shames and our fears and everything that we don't like about ourselves. We turn back as light itself to use our temporary creations to increasingly awaken us to our eternal nature. How powerful might it be to discover that as light from presence, which is a no thing, you can create a body, a world, a personality, and experience all manner of creations. Imagine if you could discover how you've created guilt. Would you create any more? Imagine if you could discover how you can take presence and mold it and manipulate it into shame. Would you create more shame? Or might you use that power to create something you truly want to experience? Remember our Trinity? God is, and I am as God is. I choose, and that choice creates my experience. We've been using that Trinity all along. Now's the time for us to get really curious, great wonder, and turn back upon our creations, to turn the mind back upon itself, but to use a greater power than our thinking mind, the power of light, which is already intelligent, which is already non-judgmental, which is already your true nature, which is you as an aspect of God, a creator, to use your very temporary creation to discover your nature. How is it that I use the power of light to selectively forget memories and remember other ones? How is it I imbue a memory with the power to create feeling states in me? How, as light, have I used an image on a television screen to determine my state of being? How is it, as light, that I can make my body sick to defend myself? These, my friends, are powerful questions. But in order to discover the power behind them, we must come at them from the very power that created them. Wow. Wow. So Mother Mary delivered her message masked in something we would all look at very spiritually and go, oh, yes, Mother Mary, we'll love our creations. Yes, we will. Thank you, Mother Mary. We'll free them and we'll free ourselves. Well, friends, our journey from here on out will be the deeper exploration of that. How to root our identity in light and presence and be curious when our creation, our temporary creation, is going nutso. Not to deny that it's going nuts, not to deny that it's in fear, not to dismiss it, but to rest in presence with great wonder and look upon it and go, behold, wow, I wonder if I could discover how I've created this. And if I can discover how I've created it, then I wonder if I might choose differently and be able to create different experiences. Wow. I don't know about you guys, but I just think this is the greatest thing in creation. So I hope our time together to now has been a sufficient, and you've given yourself playful opportunities to touch presence enough, to play with light and its gnosis enough that we can now get there easily. We can use that power to truly turn back. Because to be in our creations without this power is fucking painful. And it's suffering. Wow. So what a review we've had to this point, and a pointer to where we're going. Establishing our identity as light and using our very personal and intimate, and we can't get away from it, creation, to discover our creative power and the freedom from which we have made it all. And then increasingly create very, very consciously. It's kind of sexy, isn't it? But rather than using concepts and beliefs to trade bad ones for good ones, we're going to take a step back, claim this true identity in light, and let that gnosis reveal to us. Let that gnosis truly show us what's going on there. Let that gnosis reveal the deepest roots, the deepest seeds that as Christ we planted when we said yes to the tiny mad idea. This is the journey that Yeshua took to the point where he could create at will. And that's all of our nature. We don't get to that in some other realm. We can have it right here. And how do we get there? But by using the power of light and presence to discover the creative power with which we've each dreamed and created our unique dreams. In total innocence, by the way. And if you guys haven't noticed, in a reality that's so compelling, we argue about it, that it's so real. I mean, have you recognized how real your creation has been? how real your life of fear and thinking and suffering and guilt and shame and separation and your spirit, nobody doubts that reality. That's why when people tell us, oh, that's an illusion, we're like, I don't fucking know. This foot hurts, you know. You can tell me, oh, yeah, it's all a delusion and swipe it away. But I'm living an experience which seems really, really real to me. Well, we're going to discover the reality, the true power that's been creating that. And increasingly, we can re-identify properly as it and create newly from it. Wow. Joan, you got a question? Or are you just excited? Right. So we're going to begin our journey into inquiry, but it does us no good to inquire from within our body mind if we're not inquiring in communion with light, in spacious presence, and letting its gnosis reveal to us. We're just redecorating the body mind and putting a spiritual ribbon on it and going, look at me. We're not really becoming creators again. We're not truly waking up to that power. So, a summary and an invitation to make the turn. To turn back as Mother Mary invited us to truly love our creations. That doesn't, to love them into a wholeness and discover the very power with which we've been doing the whole crazy thing together. And that's where we'll go in the weeks ahead. So that's not to empower your body mind with more beliefs and concepts. And please don't relegate what we're doing to beliefs and concepts in your mind, because when the mind thinks it believes something, it no longer learns anything. When we come into light, each time we got to come with beginner's mind, totally unattached, and let that gnosis just reveal to us what is. Not what we want to be, not what we don't want to be, not what we hope to see, not what we think we spiritually should see, but we just let light show us the truth. And when we truly see the truth, I have done this to myself, and you'll see how you've done it. That truth will set you free to recreate or play with this creation in an entirely new way. Not because it'll make you holy or spiritual to do so, but because you'll just know. That's very, very exciting to me. I don't know about you. So I'll open it up if anybody has questions, comments, oh shits, oh damns. Shit, I thought this was the spiritual group that was going to free me from having to love my creations. Where we, yes. Okay, hang on. I'll turn you on. Yeah. Okay, my friend, you're on.
Hi. I have a question. Is an addiction, is that also a creation?
Is an addiction also a creation?
Yes. Creation of own making.
An addiction, like sex, like drugs, like mind king, like whatever, is an effect of the greatest addiction of all time that we call ego, which is light limiting itself only to a body mind. Addictions are not biological. Addictions are choices we make and then say, I'm not making that choice. So let's just use an example. Say an alcoholic. The first time a being picks up a bottle or a drink and drinks it is a choice. So let's say they're an addict now and they're sitting in the bar and they totally unconsciously reach over and pick up that bottle and take a drink. It's a choice that they have rendered unconscious. They say they can't control it, which is a very powerful use of light, don't you think? using the power of light to create something that we call an addiction to convince me I do not have power. Wow. Wow. So I've made a choice in the past, and I bind myself to that past choice and say I'm not free to choose in this moment. But let's take that alcoholic sitting at the bar again. That bottle doesn't pick itself up, does it?
Mm-hmm.
It is a self-created action, as are all addictions, whether they're addictions of thought, addiction of feeling, addiction of anything. And this is the kind of power we have to reawaken to and discover if we're going to wake up, because the body mind has to be rooted in victimhoodness. The power of light is not a victim. The power of light is bound only by the laws of God, the Trinity. I exist, I'm an aspect of God, I choose, and I create my experiences.
Yeah, I asked it because of, so I have to love it. And I can tell my story a little bit.
Well,
I
before
was
you
a
do
bit
that, just before you do that, let's rest into presence. Connect to that eternal part of your being where the wisdom already abides, where the gnosis of what you're asking already exists. Now that we've entered that communion, feel free to share.
Yeah. Actually, I think I know the answer. I
Of
know the
course
answer.
you do. Of course you do.
I have to love it. Only what I will share is background information. I was fundamental Christian. For 20 years, I tried to stop smoking. Then I came on the spiritual path. I stopped smoking for 15 years. And now it is back in my life. And I do not understand it. I did not understand it. I melt away in despair. And I say, what is happening? And it goes up and up and up and up. And now more and more, actually the last year, God speaks sometimes in ways to me that I feel this is not the way with power, but it is love. I have to love it. And actually, yeah, well, what Cindy said, I have to love also if it is terrible in my eyes.
Of course. Well, I assume that you're judging smoking as bad, wrong, not
Yeah.
spiritual, and you
Oh
shouldn't
yes,
be doing it.
I do that. I want to be spiritual. I want to not a guy with a cigarette in his mouth.
Okay, so just feel that. Just feel, I don't want to be a spiritual guy with a cigarette in his mouth. So just feel into spacious presence. And just feel what you feel when I ask this question. Spirit, does smoking in any way make me unspiritual?
No, it took me a long time to discover this.
Spirit, does a choice to smoke create experiences?
Yes.
Spirit, am I innocently free to smoke and feel guilty, or smoke and be free?
That's my discovery. Thank you. And I'm wavering to go that way, but I feel I'm pushed that way, and now not push is not the word. I really see that is the only way.
Well, you've brought up a very important topic, my friend. And if you feel complete for now, I'm going to address it with everybody because this will help everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so what our beautiful friend has outlined for us is a self-image held within the body-mind of what being spiritual is. All of those self-images, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. If I was like this, it would be that way. If I was not like this, it would be a different way. All of those, I want to be really, really clear, listen carefully. All of those self-created perceptions are idols you've placed before your God self. What if you would merely, as light, accept yourself as you are in this moment and stop creating self-perceptions of what you should be other than what you actually are being? Because that game of shoulding yourself in that way is an attack against your freedom. Rather than being free in this moment to choose. And freedom of choice doesn't mean making choice within the context of what's spiritual and what's not. That's not frigging freedom of choice. So what if all your self-images and your holy ones, the ones derived out of what I'm supposed to be doing, based on A Course in Miracles or any of these spiritual pathways, to be Christ-like, what if all of those are egoic creations that separate you from your lights and presence, absolute acceptance of you as you are in this moment, free to change or not in the next moment? Because if you guys have been playing with presence, surely you've discovered it accepts you exactly as you are. Exactly as you are. Even the idea that it would have an opinion is ridiculous. So what if you would all be ready and willing to drop your ideas of what you should be? If I was awake, I would be like this. If I was this, I would be like this. Drop every bit of that. Get into presence. As presence, accept yourself exactly as you are right there, and then choose consciously where you'd like to go. Because if you want to truly be free to choose and create, that is a function of light itself. What he just revealed and showed us is how he, and all of us have done this in some fashion, have limited the power of free will by shooting it into limitation. And I'll tell you this joke, my friend, because Yeshua shared it with me. There's these two totally enlightened guys. They're in a bar. One of them's got on Harley leathers, bigger beard than I got, smoking a big fat stogie, eating a rare, almost right off the bone, rare steak, and drinking a beer. Next to him is a monk in beautifully hand-woven in exquisite detail and devotion to God, this saffron robe. and he's having carrot juice and a salad with no dressing. These two enlightened guys look at each other. What do they say to each other? Nothing. Nothing at all. Freedom, looking upon freedom, and so it is. So this movement into presence has to be a self-acceptance of what is right now, because presence, that's all it does. And the power of light to just report what is. If we're dragging in our shoulds and shouldn'ts and musts and ought tos and hopes and dreams and blah, 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 we're nowhere near the truth of light that can actually show us what's really going on. That can actually reveal to us what's going on. Victimhoodness within the body mind, power and freedom within presence. That's why we've been doing all that we've been doing to illuminate light and presence so much, to provide a contrast, because without the contrast, it can be a really confusing, bewildering journey. So, total self-acceptance of myself as I am right now. If you don't start there, you will not be free to choose, to change or not. If you've already shoulding yourself, you've used your freedom to limit yourself. Do you get it? You're not actually free in that moment, because your shoulds have already co-opted your freedom into some limitation of what you should or shouldn't be choosing, what you should or shouldn't be feeling. That's not freedom. And that's one of the primary strategies that our ego uses so that we don't make this movement into light, where we can see clearly, see the truth that will set us free, and be totally free to choose. Because you're not free to choose unless you're free to keep it or let go of it. That's when you're really free. Because from light's point of view, from Christ's point of view, to smoking or not, neither one is more or less spiritual. They're both choices which create experience. You can even wrap a spiritual ribbon around it and go, well, one choice makes me holy and the other one makes me non-spiritual. Still using the same power to create those experiences. So total self-acceptance is the necessary ground in this moment to freely see, clearly see, and clearly choose. To allow what is and rest in light, or your breath, or whatever technique works for you, so that the power of light can truly illuminate what's going on, give you the clear vision, then you're free to choose. But if you've already chosen what's there shouldn't be there, you've abdicated the throne of power and you're stuck. That's why we've got to get back into the neutrality of presence and light before we can recreate, play with being any different. Hope that makes sense. Yeah. And, neutrality within our thinking mind is just an abstract concept, because it doesn't actually know neutrality. That's why resting in this feeling communion of presence is so important. Or the neutrality of breath. I mean, good breath, bad breath, doesn't matter. I mean, neutrality of breath. You can smoke your ass off while you're doing a Christed inquiry and it's just fine. So it's not the smoking that hurts us, it's our judgments about it that hurt us. Smoking is one more totally neutral event. Except in the body-mind that's already judged it. Get into presence, feel into that neutrality, and then choose freely whatever you would have. And if you'd like to keep smoking, then great. Guilt-free, smoke your ass off. It's okay. But you will have the effects of those choices. You don't have to compound it with the spiritual, self-abuse. but you probably will cough and hack, or I don't know what else, smokers do, fingernail color or whatever. So total self-acceptance is what we touch when we move into presence. If we don't get to that ground of neutrality and the ground of true free will, we got no shot at liberating ourselves from our stuff, because we'll just keep playing the should game with ourselves. You'll create you'll stop smoking, and you'll be convinced that makes you more spiritual. And then you'll secretly judge everybody who's still smoking and go, oh, well, look how unspiritual they are. All the while presence neutrally is just loving them all and freeing them all. So absolute self-acceptance is the ground from which we can freely choose or not to change. Nobody says we have to change. It's just that voice in your mind. Presence accepts you just as you are. Light reports you just as you are. It's the interpretive part of our mind which is the real challenging part here. So thank you all for your bearing with me today as we recap. Paula, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm a little, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a question in regard to what you just said about smoking. Because if everything's neutral and we create through our thoughts and our judgment of things, good, bad, spiritual, not spiritual, whatever. And you mentioned that if you decide you want to continue to smoke, you're going to have an experience of coughing or whatever. Isn't that a belief that that's what goes with that experience? Or can you have the experience of smoking and have none of the bad, what we would consider a bad experience?
Yes, you can have the experience of smoking and having no effects, but recognize you want to smoke because you want an effect.
Okay.
You want to drink because you want an effect.
Got it. Okay.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the desired effect comes with other stuff. Now, I will go out on a limb here. You can get to a point where even the worldly agreed upon effects, you can transcend even mass consciousness. Yeshua said back in the day, my followers will handle snakes and drink acid, meaning at certain incredibly high rarefied levels, nothing would have an effect on you.
Okay.
Because you would not only be choosing the choice, you would also be choosing the effects. But that's such an incredibly rarefied state of consciousness that's up there. But it's really important to start with the honesty. I want to smoke because I do want this effect. I like how this feels. Even if I like to be able to beat myself up for not being spiritual. So I can stand outside the retreat and feel like everybody inside's so spiritual, but I'm out here. Whatever your effect is, there is a desired effect. And that's something you can rest in light and very curiously use the power of light to report, wow, what is the effect that I get out of this cigarette? Have I ever truly discovered it? Is it a feeling sense in the body? Is it an attachment to a memory in the past of some movie I saw where somebody looked really sophisticated smoking? What is my actual fix that I get out of smoking? What is the subtle effect that I'm wanting and using the cigarette to get it? That makes sense? Mm-hmm. So believe me, I'd love for our group to do this together until we're all at that very rarefied level. I mean, Yeshua was so rarefied, he could turn his body on and off like a light switch. I mean, but I can tell you, I got work to do to get there. So the mind oftentimes likes to do this, go to these extremes and say, well, I should be able to do this. That's actually just another shouldism that can limit. So it's really about getting totally self-accepting and then totally self-honest. And with great curiosity, because, for instance, the smoking, you might not actually know what you get out of it. But the power of light, if you're really curious and really soft and spacious presence, can reveal a truth that you may not presently be aware of. And that truth can then set you free to choose differently. But if you manage to get to that stage where you're also controlling the effects, I'd love to be your disciple.
Okay. All right, I'll call you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, anybody else? Walter says, what do I do when I'm waiting for gnosis to kick in? You just reminded me, rest in the breath while I wait. Yeah, the softer you are, the more gnosis is going to come, and not needing it to come, not grasping for it. It's what Yeshua calls the holy instant, where we let go of everything. We simply do this. We let it all go, and we're open to receive. We're not blocking it by what I want to get. We're not blocking it by what I hope to get. We're not blocking it by, oh shit, this should be a spiritual answer, so I think it's going to sound like this. We get totally, because remember, in light, there's no guilt, there's no shame. It's all innocent. It's all okay. So resting in the breath is a good way, getting really, really soft. And sometimes if you're really, really triggered in the moment, you might have to let the trigger pass before you can access that and then come back to it. So I hope that answers your question. And somebody says whenever they fall, rest in the breath, they fall asleep. Well, you might want to learn to rest in your breath standing straight up. You can breathe while you're standing straight up. You can walk gently. Sometimes just some gentle movements. My friend Kevin's on here. I don't know what he calls it, like gong cha-ching or something, where he's moving very slowly and deliberately. All of those things might be able to help. Find and discover what works for you. I mean, this is a living thing. Presence and light are with us, whether we're sitting still with our eyes closed or not. It's totally useless to us if we can't access it and come to know it in the grocery store and at the DMV and everywhere else. We start like this because we're learning the subtlety of it. But as we awaken more and more, and we get more neutral and more neutral and more neutral, and what we truly want is to know the truth that can set me free rather than what I want it to be or what I think it should be, that more easily it will come. So one last tip I can give you there. If you're not getting something, you might simply say, okay, Spirit, I'm blocking this. Will you give me as much as you can without frightening me? Take me as far as I can go without scaring me. Because sometimes the answer might come and frighten us. You know, for instance, the smoking thing, if you think smoking makes you unspiritual, you're not prepared to hear the Spirit say smoking is neutral. So what you might be willing to hear is try doing half as much smoking. You see what I mean? So the more willing we are to hear and see the truth that'll set us free, rather than the truth that helps us deny, defend, and dismiss, the more we'll see it. Hope that helps. Softness, breath, presence, all those things will help. Anyone else? Anyone else? John said something here. The bait that I am, the bait that dangles before me is that I'm stuck in the labyrinth and feeling I don't have the capacity, like JMS, to guard effectively all the ego tricks and manipulations. Where's John Cotty, bro? We're going big screen with this one. Let me find him. Is he still on the call? Wave, bro. Oh, he lost. He left. Gosh, he's going to miss the answer to his really good question. How do you think I know so much about the ego's tricks and manipulations? Because I got out of the ego in the power of light, and gnosis gave me the vision, Christ's vision, to see with great clarity and great innocence. Oh! And then I knew. And then I was free to no longer be bound by that manipulation or that trick. I couldn't use it to deceive myself anymore. Boom, power of light. How have I, as Christ, created this self-protective or this dismissing strategy? And then let the light not figure it out. This isn't about thinking. It's not about figuring it out. It's about receiving the wisdom through your presence in your own life. It's not about getting smarter. It's actually about getting dumber in a worldly sense, because you don't want your mind's interpretations. You want presence to reveal and illuminate to you. That's what Yeshua said. Not my will, not my crazy thinking, thank you very much. God's gnosis be done. Illuminate me in truth. Give me true vision to see my creation really clearly. And the more you get to see your creation, you'll be able to help others more, because you'll be able to see when it's running them, because it's not running you anymore, because you've now seen from truth. Hope that makes sense. Well, John, enjoy the recording of it. Okay, friends, that's plenty for tonight, I think. I'd like a song, unless anybody has a question. So we've reviewed and we've pointed where we're going. We're going to make the turn and come back to embrace ourselves. Let me find a really cool song. Oh, this is a good one. Let me share my screen so everybody can hear this one well. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. Woo! It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Yes, I can make it now, the rain is gone. I can repair me and help to stop you. Give me the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. There's nothing but blue sky. There's nothing but blue sky. Cause you can't, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Woohoo! It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Bright, sunshiny day. Bright, sunshiny day. Bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be bright, sunshiny day. Woohoo! Okay, friends. Oh, where did I go? How do I? Well, I'd love to see everybody on the screen again. There we are. Thanks for hanging out with us in our review, and we make the turn! Woohoo! Play well, friends. See you next Tuesday.
See you, John.
Bye,
Yeah.
bye, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You.
Thank you.